What is the time period this bill covers? Thank you.
Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street, a rainy Market Street in Corning. We have so much to cover on the broadcast. We'll talk about Trump's address to the nation last night. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Kind of a late start. I had to watch it this morning. We'll dissect that, tell you all about it. Also, we're going to be talking about some New York State updates because yesterday was the budget deadline. Clearly, the budget deadline was not met. Assemblyman Phil Palmisano sent us a clip that we will be playing a little bit later on about the budget extender. So this happened before they extended the budget. They have since put forth the extender, but I thought he raised some very good points in that. So we'll be playing that as well. But first, we got a really special treat from friend to Frankly Speaking, Jack. He promised us some photos from the Artemis 2 launch yesterday. Did you watch it, by the way? Amazing, isn't it? So yesterday, Jack writes in, launch went very well. It was only late by about 10 minutes, but they did a workaround. The start of a new chapter 50 years later. Another step towards putting a base of operations on the moon. And Jack was kind enough to send in some photos. There's our first photo. These are exclusive, frankly speaking. That's the close-up, if you will. And then we have, isn't that amazing? Exclusive photos from right here on Frankly Speaking. So we appreciate that, Jack. Thank you for sending them in. But yeah, what an amazing thing to watch. They made, like I said, the launch, well, Jack had mentioned a couple minutes late, but still really exciting. Now, right now, according to NASA officials, they are reluctant to celebrate the launch, which I think is a little disingenuous when they say that, only because I watched the broadcast like you did, and they were celebrating the launch. But they need to focus on the rest of the mission. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman assured that the crews know the challenges ahead as those manning the agency's mission control hunker down for round-the-clock monitoring. We will hold our celebration until this crew splashes down on the west coast of the United States. The Artemis II successfully blasted off about 6:30 p.m. and entered Earth's orbit within 10 minutes. After takeoff, the shuttle experienced a brief communication issue that has since been resolved and is currently being investigated. Isaacman, who's been to space twice himself, noted it is far less stressful to be strapped into the rocket than it is to be responsible for it here on Earth. We've certainly been here before. We know the challenges ahead. Another NASA official praised the decade of work that went into preparing for the Artemis program as a whole, but was keen to remind reporters that their mission is far from over. Quote, the rocket guys can go out and play. The space guys got a lot of homework. This comes after Trump had pledged to send astronauts to the moon. Trump wrote on Truth Social, tonight at 6:24 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for the first time in over 50 years, America is going back to the moon. Artemis II, among the most powerful rockets ever built, is launching our brave astronauts farther into deep space than any human has ever gone. Now, President Trump established the Artemis program during his first term back in 2017. According to Fox News, Artemis II has been scheduled for an earlier launch but faced delays following technical issues identified during testing, including fuel and helium leaks that required additional repairs to the Space Launch System rocket. Now, the 4 astronauts assigned to Artemis II, Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, and Christina Koch of the U.S., and Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen, are expected to travel around the moon and back, marking the first crewed mission beyond low Earth orbit since 1972. While the mission will not land on the lunar surface, it is designed to carry astronauts farther from Earth than any crew mission since the Apollo era. Now, just as something, and we are going to get into Trump's address next, but I'm not sure if this is something that piques your interest, but it did mine. The full Artemis II menu, maybe I'm just hungry this morning. Their full menu has been revealed, and what astronauts will be dining on, it's gourmet, space-friendly meals through their 10-day mission. Let's look at what we have. Let's see. I think this is the full menu here. 189 unique menu items. Now, we're not going to read all of that, but more than 10 types of beverages. The most common food items, tortillas, wheat flatbread, vegetable quiche, breakfast sausage, cautious with nuts, I'm not sure what that is, mango salad, granola with blueberries, almonds, cashews, barbecue beef brisket, my goodness, broccoli au gratin, spicy green beans, macaroni and cheese, tropical fruit salad, butternut squash, and cauliflower. How about this? There are 5 different hot sauces flying around the moon with the crew. And how many cups of coffee does it take to power the Artemis II crew? About 43 cups of coffee. There's 58 tortillas on board. I don't know. I just thought this was kind of interesting. As I had mentioned, they're going to have barbecue beef brisket and a strict tortilla count. So don't get crazy when you first get up there with your tortillas. As I said, 10 different beverages: coffee, green tea, mango peach smoothie, chocolate and vanilla, breakfast drinks, lemonade, apple cider, and cocoa. All right, there you go. I don't know. Now, NASA uses top technology to prepare their meals as no resupply or refrigeration is available on the rocket. Everything has to be shelf stable and can only come to life through rehydration. Foods must be easily to prepare and consume in microgravity, minimizing crumbs, and remain safe and stable throughout the mission. The crew provided input well before the meals were packed for the test flight. Astronauts get to test all their meals on Earth before the menu is approved, and they all get 2 to 3 days worth of their favorites. But that food isn't something that's taken lightly, as mass, volume, and power limits its in the shared cabin are all considered before an item is approved. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. Like I said, I think I'm just hungry this morning. Okay, we're going to be talking about the address to the nation. What did you think last night? What did you think? Lindsey Graham gave it a glowing review. We had others that did not. Also, yesterday, President Trump attended the Supreme Court hearing on birthright citizenship. There are some people that are very angry about the fact that he attended that. We may get to that. New York State, like I said, we're going to hear from Phil Palmisano. Don't forget, on tomorrow's broadcast, we'll be talking with Assemblyman Joe Semplinsky, so we can ask him all about the budget process. Maybe even get his prediction on when we'll actually have a budget. Remember, the budget was due yesterday. Now, I think the fair question to ask is, if you can't make April 15th to pay your taxes to New York State, can you just put through an extender? I mean, they have a job to do, and you'll see Assemblyman Palmisano talk about it. They have a job to do, so they put forth the extender, but it's not the right thing to do in the long run. April 1st is the legal deadline. I have to mention one quick thing before we take a break. As an update from a story we had for you the last couple weeks for whatever reason. So Bruce Springsteen took to the concert stage in Minneapolis, and he delivered a blunt warning about the state of America. Quote, "We are living through some very dark times. Our American values that have sustained us for 250 years are being challenged as never before. We've got our young men and women's lives at risk in an unconstitutional and illegal war. This is happening now. There are immigrants being held in detention centers around the country and being deported without due process of law to alien countries and foreign gulags. This is happening now." Then he went on to criticize Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Justice Department. While working Americans struggle, our president and his family enrich themselves by billions of dollars trading on the people's office in corruption unmatched in American history. This is happening now. So the theme must be is this is happening now. Or that's a crutch word for him or term that he needs. I'm not sure. But think about this. While working Americans struggle, do you realize, and this is why I mention it, do you realize how much it costs to go see Bruce Springsteen? Tickets for the Minneapolis show, $1,000. So he's not talking to the working American that's struggling, apparently. But I'll continue with what he had to say. "The White House is destroying the American idea and our reputation around the world. Too many, we are no longer looked upon as often imperfect but strong defenders of democracy standing for the global good. We are no longer the land of the free and the home of the brave. We are now, to many, America the reckless, unpredictable, predatory rogue nation. That is this administration's and this president's legacy. This is happening now." This did not go over well on social media. What an elite, self-righteous, we'll say piece of garbage. How's that? "I regret ever buying this low life's music. He talks about the middle class as his roots while living and acting as the king." Another user saying, "I've seen Bruce 10 times. I can't support any of this message when tickets are $1,000. Get over yourself, man." Another user saying, "Billionaire who charges $800 for concert tickets claims to represent working class Americans." Another concert, another political rant. People came for the music, not a lecture. You know, it's interesting because in the past, he would lecture you about the 1% and the rich. He would talk about the 1%. While again charging you hundreds of dollars for tickets. So it's a little hard to be lectured by Mr. Springsteen about his ways of, I guess, fixing the country. Also, I know. We've got so much important stuff to talk about. Oh, on a scary note, and I know I got to take a break, and then we're going to talk about Iran, but I try to give these updates to you because we have so much rhetoric like Bruce Springsteen's, or you see in the news, or you see politicians. I've got some examples of that later. And it creates a powder keg, and it's very scary. We've already had at least 2 assassination attempts on the president. Well, a Massachusetts man who threatened to viciously kill President Trump in a string of rambling Facebook posts brandished a sword at FBI agents as they attempted to arrest him yesterday. Andrew Emerald, 45, who was taken into custody after a brief standoff with authorities, allegedly penned 8 separate Facebook posts from May of 2025 to July of 2025 that threatened to injure and kill Trump, including hanging him, quote, from the Statue of Liberty, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Massachusetts. He was indicted by a federal grand jury for his online threats. He first posted, I don't want to read his post, but there's so many phrases that he uses that we see from politicians, that we see from the late night hosts. He said, when I see to it that Trump is put to death, it will be the day the purpose creation put me here for beyond creating. My daughter is fulfilled because what she is destined to do for the world is far greater than mine, taking out the orange menace. Yeah, I don't want to read any more of that, but Orange Menace, using some of the same. But he did say that he's going to hang the president from the Statue of Liberty until his pathetic, bloated corpse rots off and falls in the ocean, and I swept out to sea with humanity's trash. So they broke down his door. He wielded a sword at the agent. He refused to put his weapon down, but then shut the door on the agents with additional authorities and a crisis negotiator stepping in and coaxing him to voluntarily leave his house so agents could cuff him. Emerald also allegedly told agents that they were lucky they were not from ICE because he would have come out of the residence with the sword. I mean, this is a guy that sounds like he's just watching the mainstream media over and over and getting filled with this hate. He's being charged with 8 counts of interstate transmission of threatening communications. He was slated to appear in federal court in Springfield yesterday. There we go. All right, we've got to take a short break. Stay with us. When we come back, the address to the nation from President Trump. Your thoughts on it, your thoughts on Artemis 2, or on any of the issues in the news this morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Hot tubs, hot tubs, hot tubs. With Easter coming, what better way to make every day better than with a Hesselson's hot tub? During these uncertain, stressful times, what better way to relieve tension and relax those achy muscles? During Easter week, free chemicals and free steps, and the new and innovative energy-efficient smart tub and hydraulic lift systems are just half price. Plus, huge, unprecedented discounts on 2025 models as factory reps will be on hand. Hesselson's Easter week hot tub sale is going on now through Saturday at 5 p.m. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
You deserve primary care that connects. Care that helps you move forward. Care that connects you to world-class specialists. Care that connects you to providers who are part of your community. And care that connects you to the life you love. Because great healthcare comes from providers who care about connection just like you. Find your primary care appointment at centralishealth.org/schedule.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think about calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby.
I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We have some lingering rain chances today, but not quite as active overall as what we've recently seen and as what still lies ahead of us. Tonight, mild, low 50s to mid 40s in the coolest spots. We'll be running much warmer Friday, above average by more than 20 degrees. Another warm day Saturday, but the cooling trend begins Sunday, highs in the 40s Monday onward. Also much drier starting Monday.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Mark writes in, no Blue Moon non-alcoholic beer on the space shuttle? Shucks. Yeah, that was a missed opportunity, Mark. And yeah, but then you figure, I wonder, well, they didn't, I don't have my list now, I already threw it out. Did they have soda? I wonder with the carbonation and things, but I think you're right. Missed opportunity. Okay, the 5 takeaways from Trump's Iran address, according to Fox News. Trump says Operation Epic Fury is nearing completion. Excuse me. It's essentially really no longer Iran, that is, a threat. Trump said we are systematically dismantling the regime's ability to threaten America or project power outside of their borders. That means eliminating Iran's Navy, which is now absolutely destroyed, hurting their Air Force and their missile program at levels never seen before, and annihilating their defense industrial base. We've done all of it. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. Their missiles are just about used up or beaten. Taken together, these actions will cripple Iran's military, crush their ability to support terrorist proxies, and deny them the ability to build a nuclear bomb. Our armed forces have been extraordinary. There's never been anything like it militarily. Everyone is talking about it. And tonight, I'm pleased to say that these core strategic objectives are nearly complete or nearing completion. Meanwhile, the president thanked U.S. allies in the Middle East, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. They've been great, and we will not let them get hurt or fail in any way, shape, or form. I have made clear from the beginning of Operation Epic Fury that we will continue until our objectives are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. The president warned that the U.S. is going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. In the meantime, discussions are ongoing. Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all of their original leaders' deaths. They're all dead. The new group is less radical and much more reasonable. He also, takeaway 2, said that rising gas prices in the U.S. are short-term. Many Americans have been concerned to see the recent rise in gasoline prices here at home. The short-term increase has been entirely the result of the Iranian regime launching deranged terror attacks against commercial oil tankers in neighboring countries that have nothing to do with the conflict. This is yet more proof that Iran can never be trusted with nuclear weapons. They will use them, and they will use them quickly. It would lead to decades of extortion, economic pain, and instability worse than we can ever imagine. The United States has never been prepared economically to confront this threat. You all know that we build the strongest economy in history. The president touted the economy under his leadership, saying that he has taken a dead and crippled country. I hate to say that, but we were dead and crippled country after the last administration and made it the hottest country anywhere in the world by far with no inflation, record-setting investments coming into the U.S., over $18 trillion in the highest stock market ever with 53 all-time record highs in just 1 year. I don't want to get into the trap of quoting him. You can watch the whole speech yourself, of course, but Trump thanked the U.S. troops for their work in the Middle East and Venezuela, saying that the U.S. troops thanked them for the massive job they did in taking the country of Venezuela in a matter of minutes. We are working along with Venezuela in a true sense, joint venture partners, he said. Shifting to Operation Epic Fury and the progress made, the president honored the 13 American warriors who have laid down their lives in this fight to prevent our children from ever having to face a nuclear Iran. Twice this past month, I've traveled to Dover Air Force Base, and it's been something I wanted to be with those heroes as they return to American soil. And I was with them and their families, their parents, their wives, their husbands. We salute them, and now we must honor them by completing the mission for which they gave their lives. And every single one of the people, their loved ones said, please, sir, please finish the job. Every one of them. And we're going to finish the job, and we're going to finish it very fast. We're getting very close. Then, I think this is an important message. Trump urged Americans to keep the Iran conflict in perspective. And I'm glad he pointed this out, because we've got to remember, as I've said since day one, the media is presenting this to you, especially younger generations that have never really dealt with anything quite like this, as you would think it was the longest running war, perhaps, the most deadly, the worst for America. That's the message the media is trying to send. But Trump said it's very important that we keep this conflict in perspective. American involvement in World War I lasted 1 year, 7 months, and 5 days. World War II lasted for 3 years, 8 months, and 25 days. The Korean War lasted for 3 years, 1 month, and 2 days. The Vietnam War lasted for 19 years, 5 months, and 29 days. Iraq went on for 8 years, 8 months, and 28 days. We are in this military operation so powerful, so brilliant against one of the most powerful countries for 32 days. And the country has been eviscerated and essentially is really no longer a threat. Then calling Iran the bully of the Middle East, but they're the bully no longer. Trump then ripped into Obama's Iran nuclear deal. He said, I terminated Barack Hussein Obama's Iran nuclear deal disaster. Obama gave them $1.7 billion in cash, green cash, took it out of the banks from Virginia, D.C., and Maryland. All the cash they had. The president went on to say that Obama flew it by airplanes in an attempt to buy their respect and loyalty, but it didn't work. They laughed at our president and went on with their mission to have a nuclear bomb. His Iran deal would have led to a colossal arsenal of massive nuclear weapons for Iran, and they would have had them years ago, and they would have used him. Would have been a whole different world. So that's kind of the takeaways. Trump also made the case to the nation that taking out Iran is an investment in your children and your grandchildren's future. And again, I don't want to fall into the trap of just quoting, but he touted the progress. Did you happen to watch it? I know it's late. Some of you may still be sleeping in. And he talked about the threat. I think it's interesting that he did say in the next 2 or 3 weeks we're going to bomb them back to the Stone Age. Now, he did make no mention of a land-based assault by U.S. troops after reportedly being presented with plans that could have sent commandos to retrieve deeply buried uranium or to seize the Karg Island fuel depot. He said, we're now totally independent of the Middle East, and yet we are there to help. We don't have to be there. We don't need their oil. We don't need anything they have. We're here to help our allies. And I think the big takeaway, not big takeaway, I thought the speech was overall very good. I think an important takeaway was to keep it into perspective, because he gets to say that to a national audience while the mainstream media nightly tries to tell you and present it as a different story. And reiterating the point, how am I doing on time? Reiterating the point that Iran is no longer a threat. Iran did not take well to that. We'll tell you about that a little bit later on, but we do have to take a short break. So your thoughts on the speech. This isn't going to be our whole focus of the morning, but I thought it was only right to start the broadcast with it. We've got some other Iran updates. Then we're going to get to the Supreme Court, a lot here about New York State. Bruce Blakeman, I saw a piece this morning, and maybe we'll get to it. Bruce Blakeman denied the matching funds, which goes to show you that the matching funds program was never about helping the little person win a race. It was all to help incumbent Democrats continue to win. Well, now, of course, they have to rub salt in the wounds, and there's outlets, and really a lot of outlets, even the Daily News, the left Daily News was saying, you've got to give him the matching funding. This is ridiculous. Well, now that they haven't given him the matching funding, and keep in mind there's going to be a lawsuit, there's an article saying, well, he gets what he deserves, basically because he didn't like matching funds. So he's playing the game the way they created it, even if he didn't like the game they created. But now I guess he gets what he deserves. It's unbelievable what one-party rule in Albany will bring. But we've got to take a short break. Keep those waves, keep those comments coming in. I know you stayed up late for Trump's speech because you're being awful quiet this morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Watch news from the Twin Tiers and catch local events on Facebook.com/Big Fox News. Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
When you spend 100 years building chainsaws, you get really good at building chainsaws. So when Steel built a mower, we built the chainsaw mowers. New blade, same bloodline.
Can you help me?
Mom, Dad, we're going out.
Thank you.
Oh, look, they're playing chess.
What you got there?
Will you help my mom?
She's real sick, huh? Hey, crew, I'll give the first move to anyone who signs up to be an organ donor. How do you do it?
Easy. Just go to organdonor.gov.
You heard him, organdonor.gov.
More donors means more hope. Sign up at
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today. All your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And we have a lot more to get to. Okay, Trump says the core objectives of Iran war are nearing the completion. As I've mentioned, if you did tune in, Trump reveals Iran's Navy is gone. Iran's Air Force is in ruins, and their leaders are dead. Most of them are dead. He also mentioned that the United States is producing more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined during the Wednesday night address. Because of our Drill Baby Drill program, America has plenty of gas. Under my leadership, we are the #1 producer of oil and gas on the planet, without even discussing the millions of barrels that we're getting from Venezuela. Because of the Trump administration's policy, we produce more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. There's no country like us anywhere in the world, and we're in great shape for the future. He went on to say the United States imports almost no oil through the Strait of Hormuz and won't be taking any in the future. We don't need it. We haven't needed it. We've beaten and completely decimated Iran. They're decimated both militarily and economically. And the countries of the world that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage. They should take the lead in protecting the oil that they so desperately depend on. Trump then addressed the countries that can't get fuel, many of which refuse to get involved in the decapitation of Iran. And he offered 2 suggestions. Number 1, buy oil from the United States of America. We have plenty. And number 2, build up some delayed courage and go to the strait and just take it. I like that line, that delayed courage. He used that recently in a True Social post. And he said the short-term increase has been entirely the result of the Iranian regime launching deranged terror attacks against commercial oil tankers. I mentioned that quote earlier. But yes, get that delayed courage and get out there. Hey, I like this one. I didn't watch the president. I figured I would just wait for your show updates. Well, that's awful nice of you. Thank you. I'm glad that you tune in here to hear all the takeaways. Now, after the president essentially declared, now the criticism in the media is he didn't give a date that the war will end. I think that's a foolish criticism. I understand why the media does it. It's their talking point. But in what world do we want the leader of the free world, the president of the United States, to say, by the way, because remember how this happens when people have done this. By the way, let's just make up a date. April, we'll say 15th, tax day. April 15th, the war is over. So what does Iran do? They'll just sit back and wait. I mean, do we want a president to kind of not predict, to make a hard deadline? That never seems to work, to show your cards. But that's the criticism that the media is making. But the president's saying that it's essentially done, essentially over. Well, Iran did not like that message. Iran's military threatened yesterday to launch crushing and destructive attacks on the U.S. after President Trump declared Operation Epic Fury an overwhelming victory. Tehran issued its fire response after President Trump reiterated his intention to bomb Iran back to the Stone Age, branding the Islamic Republic fanatical. and the most violent and thuggish regime on earth. With trust in Almighty God, this war will continue until your humiliation, disgrace, permanent and certain regret, and surrender, the military's operational command said in a statement. Await our more crushing, broader, and more destructive actions. In his primetime address, well, we already went through those quotes. So the normal kind of typical bluster from Iran doesn't really come as a surprise. Just thought I'd pass it along to you. Now, what we are learning, and this was before the president's speech, Iran has unleashed, this is horrible, the fact that there aren't people in the streets protesting, but we have to be lectured from the anti-Semitic pro-Palestine protesters. Where are the celebrities? Where are the protesters defending and giving voice to the Iranian people? Why? I mean, I wish there was an answer. I don't have one. I've never seen someone try to explain the reasoning why you don't see pro-Iranian, meaning the people of Iran, protests, even though they're being slaughtered by their own regime. We've even had people despicably making the connection to what happened in Minneapolis to, well, who was it that said it? Who said, what's the difference? I mean, that is how sickening. But again, if anybody's, you don't have to defend the position, but if you've heard any reasoning or justification for why these protesters, these career protesters, aren't speaking out, of course they're against the war in Iran, but they're not sticking up and defending for the people of Iran against their regime. So do they side with the regime? I think that's a fair question to ask until we get some type of answer. I have not seen one. And as much research as I've done and the people I've talked to, I've never seen a reasoning. Because we were given a lot of reasons why they were anti-Semitic and pro-Palestine. And the anti-Semitism, man, I don't want to be one of these shows where I get on tangents, but AOC signaling, I think, where the party's headed, even more radical anti-Semitism. But getting back to this. I know I started the sentence, I got 2 words in and went on that tangent. But Iran has unleashed several new executions, with many more expected to come, over fears of another citizen-led uprising as the embattled regime fights for survival in its war against the U.S. and Israel. At least 4 members from the anti-regime organization, the People's Mojahedin Organization of Iran, were executed in the last 48 hours, according to the National Council of Resistance of Iran. They said the 4 executions were a message from the theocratic and highly repressive regime in an effort to intimidate and exert control. The execution of 4 PMOI members amid an external war is a clear admission by the regime that it views the Iranian people and the organized resistance as its principal enemy and an existential threat. Why were they executed now? Because the regime leadership is extremely concerned about the domestic situation and the possibility of another uprising. Some of the 2,000 members of the PMOI's resistance unit who were detained as part of a January uprising are also expected to be executed this week. So again, where are the protesters? Where are the holier-than-thou elitist celebrities with their Free the Iranian People pins or ribbons? Beyond the 4 already executed, the death sentences of 15 others have been confirmed by the Supreme Court and await implementation. Many other political prisoners are likely to receive death sentences as well. And again, the signal is, if you look at No Kings rallies and you look at some of these protests, that they don't want anything done with Iran. They don't care about, I guess, the nuclear threat. They don't care about the people of Iran being executed and murdered for free speech. Hypocrisy is not a strong enough word. It's just you can't take them serious and be lectured by them if that's their stance. I mean, I don't think we ever really took them seriously, but it's hard to listen to someone's argument and even have a good faith discussion conversation if you can't also say what is happening to the Iranian people is bad. All you're proving to us is that these protests that happened at college campuses and then went to the streets were anti-Semitic. It was just about your anti-Semitism, right? You're pro-Hamas, if you will. your pro-Hamas beliefs. Now, Trump did say that Iran's electric power plants could be the next target. If during this period of time no deal is made, we have our eyes on key targets. If there is no deal, we are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard and probably simultaneously. We have not hit their oil, even though that's the easiest target of all, because it would not give them even a small chance of survival or rebuilding. But we could hit it, and we would be gone, and there's not a thing they could do about it. A couple other questions that are popping up about what the next step could be. We'll talk about it when we return. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Yeah, hello. I'm really not sure if this is what you all do, but I really don't have anywhere else to turn.
Hi. I don't even know why I'm calling right now. I'm sorry. My thoughts are going a mile a minute.
My kids are out of state. My buddies from the army are all gone now. I'm really alone.
I left the service last year. My mom just passed away a few months ago. I miss so much time with her. I keep getting calls about the bills, and I'm trying to get a job, but I feel so stuck.
Okay, ma'am. I'm glad you called.
Okay, sir. Let's stay on the line and walk through some things.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hot tubs, hot tubs, hot tubs. With Easter coming, what better way to make every day better than with a Hesselson's hot tub? During these uncertain, stressful times, what better way to relieve tension and relax those achy muscles? During Easter week, free chemicals and free steps, and the new and innovative energy-efficient smart top and hydraulic lift systems are just half price. Plus, huge, unprecedented discounts on 2025 models as factory reps will be on hand. Hesselson's Easter week hot tub sale is going on now through Saturday at 5 p.m. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We have some lingering rain chances today, but not quite as active overall as what we've recently seen and as what still lies ahead of us. Tonight, mild, low 50s to mid 40s in the coolest spots. We'll be running much warmer Friday, above average by more than 20 degrees. Another warm day Saturday, but the cooling trend begins Sunday, highs in the 40s Monday onward. Also much drier starting Monday.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer. Ken from Ken. Anyone that relies on people that sing, dance, act, or try to make people laugh for a living to shape their political views is laughable. One needs to understand that these performers spout their political views to make sure that they stay on what they think is the correct side of the political world to continue gaining wealth. You're exactly right. A simple fact of life is Dems work hard to somehow hurt people that don't think like they do, and Republicans work to try and educate people without hurting them in some way. I enjoy watching those types of people perform and pretend, but I don't hold them any higher than any other person in America. Some do their job well, some don't, just like every other worker in America. That's a good point, Ken. And there's, it even got to the point where, and I always go back, and it was Taylor Swift was the first time I noticed it, where it wasn't just that, let's say she came out in support of some right-wing cause, which she didn't. But it was almost as much anger at the fact that she wasn't, quote, using her soapbox. So it no longer became, I'm just going to sit this one out. You had to get on the left side. So yes, the people that are already, like a Bruce Springsteen, already talking about leftist ideas, yeah, they're still supported. They were making their wealth, like you mentioned. But there's the people that are still doing really well, and then their supporters said, you've got to do something here. You got to use your soapbox, and it better be far left. So always a smart businesswoman, honestly. Taylor Swift did exactly that. There's so many other examples. That was the first time I noticed kind of the silence is violence mantra. Okay, is Trump planning a ground invasion of Iran on Good Friday? That's the question from, I think it was the London Times. And they talk about a blizzard of conflicting messages. Well, where does this information come from? They ask a question and just run away from it? So, I don't know. We don't have the answer. I thought maybe this whole piece you did. As usual with Trump, he's keeping everyone guessing, but he may be following a pattern, especially now that a 2,200-strong Marine Expeditionary Force has arrived and is being joined by thousands of paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne, as well as, it has been reported, by hundreds of special forces. So they asked the first question, is Trump planning a ground invasion of Iran on Good Friday? The president's weaponized unpredictability is destabilizing for the Middle East and the world, but there's a growing feeling that it is a ploy to buy time. Weaponized unpredictability. I know it's the same reason why they're criticizing him for not giving an out date during yesterday's address to the nation. Isn't there maybe something to be said about that unpredictability when Iran doesn't know what's going to be done? Is there maybe a little bit something to be said that we don't always have to telegraph our punches? But of course, I think Ken, to go back to what your comment was, I think Ken said it the other day, it doesn't matter what ends up happening in Iran, they will try to blame Trump for something negative. But to piggyback off of that, risky commando plan to seize Iran's uranium came at Trump's request. The U.S. military has been giving the president a plan to seize nearly 1,000 pounds of highly enriched uranium in Iran that would involve flying in equipment, excavation equipment, and building a runway for cargo planes to take the radioactive material out. The complex plan was briefed to the president in the past week after he asked for a proposal, as were its significant operation risks. Trump's request for the plan, previously unreported, signals his interest in contemplating that what would be an unusually sensitive and high-stakes special operations mission. The administration's consideration of such an operation was first reported by the Wall Street Journal. All right. Now, Lindsey Graham, going back to the speech, this should come as no surprise. It's not a criticism. Lindsey Graham has always been kind of considered a war hawk. There's no, and I mean, you can criticize him if you want, but he's always been on the side of, yeah, that seems like a good war. But he talked with Hannity last night about the president's speech. He called it a defining moment in the Iran war. Here's what President Trump said tonight. If you're in Iran, you better be listening. I'm willing to do a deal to make sure you don't become the largest state sponsor of terrorism. This was a defining moment in this campaign. He defined the end state. He set the objectives early on. We're inside the 10-yard line, and he's telling Iran how this movie ends. It's up to you, Graham said. We can do it through diplomacy, and if you reject diplomacy, this will end with a decimation of your ability to ever come back economically. Now, before Trump, this is unbelievable because we do have some criticism. And then we are going to probably move away from this for a little bit. In the next hour, we're going to hear a lot about New York State issues. But before Trump gave his speech, Rahm Emanuel, considered, used to be in the Obama administration, wasn't he the mayor of Chicago too? He was on The View. He's considered to be a presidential candidate. He's kind of an outlier, but he does have some name recognition. He had a real reputation for being very aggressive behind the scenes, very in your face. Well, he was on The View. He spoke about the ongoing war in Iran. He warned that ultimately the great responsibility of any leader in the White House is making hard choices between bad and worse, arguing that President Donald Trump has very clearly opted for the latter. We have a president who makes a decision. Every president before that had rejected the idea because it doesn't work out. If Iran does not come forward and we don't have a plan to open up the Strait of Hormuz, he will probably, for leverage purposes, put our young men and women at risk. So and I know you're not going to watch The View, but this is what Joey Behar said, just to give you an idea of what The View is. We know he's incompetent. I think that's a given. Why do you think he went in there? Was it that this might be some other reason why he did this? Because we stopped talking about the Epstein files? Guest host Whitney Cummings suggested. It worked perfectly. So yes, the question is, and then they asked Rahm Emanuel, do you agree with that? Because I agree with that. Okay, Joy, good. Good. As long as you agree, Joy. So Rahm Emanuel essentially asked, did we get into Iran to hide the Epstein files? The Epstein files, again, that Joe Biden could have released at any moment, that Obama could have released at any moment. If they're that detrimental to Trump, they did not. But apparently we went to Iran because of the Epstein files. Rahm Emanuel said he could have given a different speech about degrading the nuclear capacity, the missile delivery, the terrorist organizations, and Iran's disruptions. But once he jumped the tracks into the political regime change, etc., first of all, you're not going to do that from the air. It's never been done in the war. Emanuel went on to argue that after Trump's success in Venezuela and potential plans in Cuba, the president looked at a dynamic victory in Iran as his road to Mount Rushmore. Joy Behar repeated her assertion that the Iran war is being used as a distraction. Joy Behar said, but it also keeps people off the economy. It keeps people off the Epstein files. Yet I think we're all talking about now is Iran. Emanuel went on to joke that it's not breaking news to anyone that Trump is something of a narcissist. Okay. Think of people actually go to The View, tune into The View, to have their world view built for them. And the brilliant tactical, militarily, economically mind of a Joy Behar that believes this was to keep people off the Epstein files. Because, yeah, I think that. My goodness. All right. The White House did respond when Emanuel said it was a bad choice. Rahm Emanuel cheered on Barack Hussein Obama as he entered into the disastrous Iran nuclear deal, which enriched the terrorist Iranian regime and enabled its malign behavior. Past presidents like Obama talked about the threat posed by Iran for 47 years, but only President Trump had the courage to take action. Now, Iran's ballistic missile capacity, naval capacity, ability to arm and fund proxies, and dreams of possessing a nuclear weapon are degrading more by the day. There you go. Let's take a short break. Running a little bit late. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Crispy hot hash browns, sweet savory McGriddles, refreshingly cool iced coffee. Oh, don't mind me, just doing my morning affirmations. Crispy hot hash browns, sweet savory McGriddles.
Mix and match a sausage McMuffin with egg McMuffin, or sausage, egg, and cheese McGriddles. Get any two for just $5 and pair it with $1.99 any size iced coffee.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
We are the keepers of the wild, America's original and most invested conservationists. For more than 80 years, we've been committed to conserving wildlife and the natural landscapes that define our nation. From rugged alpine ridgelines to peaceful tall grass prairies, we've supported the conservation of more than 36 million acres of American wildlands. Our funding has led to cleaner water, fresher air, and improved wildlife habitat. From abundant fish and waterfowl populations to robust deer and elk herds, nothing is more important than maintaining wild spaces for adventurers to explore and wildlife to thrive. We are America's hunters and target shooters, stewards of the American outdoors.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are already needing to take another quick break. We ran late in that last one. But there's a Democrat pollster, Mark Penn. He served as a key advisor and pollster to both Bill and Hillary Clinton. He said, in the face of economic calamity, Franklin Roosevelt said boldly, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself," highlighting how panicked markets feed on themselves. Today, we would likely revise it to, "We have nothing to fear but fear of higher oil prices." These cost increases are Iran's primary strategy to preserve itself. It tried and failed so far to get nuclear weapons, and it's seeing its missiles, Air Force, Navy, and proxy militias all in tatters. The best way for it to survive is to convince the world it holds the key to our economic future, and so it cannot be overthrown ever. But the media is willing to go along with that point. That's the point they're trying to make daily. But look at the math, said Mr. Penn. America consumes about 20 million barrels of oil a day. We produce internally for our own use about 12 million barrels and import about 8 million, while exporting another 11 million because our refineries are set up to process certain kinds of oil but not others. So America is a net exporter of oil, and so its overall economy actually gains, not loses, from the spike in prices. Continuing the equation, an increase in prices from $60 to $110 a barrel results increased energy costs for the U.S. of about $1 billion a day. A 90-day war would add $90 billion of higher oil costs, far less impactful than President Trump's tariffs or the inflation President Biden caused with runaway spending. And the money shifts from one part of the economy to the other. Of course, the increases in prices, they're real, and impacts consumers, especially in states who have raised prices as a deliberate strategy to discourage oil use as part of their green strategies. There are a lot of tax relief and other strategies Trump could use to return these temporary increases to consumers. But America had oil prices over $100 a barrel for 3.5 years while Barack Obama was president, and the press yawned. And even for 4 months during 2022, when Russia invaded the Ukraine, oil was at a similar level, reaching a peak of $128, without any Armageddon-like headlines. And many of those politicians suddenly complaining about those price increases have for years been behind policies deliberately engineered to raise and tax them. At the same time, preventing Iran from continuing to build up its military and nuclear arsenal could save trillions of dollars of future costs. In short, the price of the Iran war is much, much less than the benefit it provides. A temporary increase in oil prices have been overblown, and in the end, it will be worth it compared to crippling one of the worst regimes in history. On that note, take a break, and then we're going to wrap up hour number one. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
If you want an experience that wakes you up, a place where you can scream to your heart's delight, go ahead. No one will hear you anyway. Here, you don't just watch. You feel. Come as you are and have a damn good time. That rumble you hear, that growl you feel, that's us.
Alcoholics Anonymous. For more information, visit aa.org.
I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We have some lingering rain chances today, but not quite as active overall as what we've recently seen and as what still lies ahead of us. Tonight, mild, low 50s to mid 40s in the coolest spots. We'll be running much warmer Friday, above average by more than 20 degrees. Another warm day Saturday, but the cooling trend begins Sunday, highs in the 40s. Monday onward, also much drier starting.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, wrapping up our number one. Comment from a viewer. The budget, Hochul is afraid of losing. The budget. Hochul is afraid of losing, so she has to make all these new laws so the next person has a mess to clean up on day one. Maybe we could get Trump in there and he could separate upstate from New York City so we don't have to pay for them. There was talks at one point of a Trump running, I think Don Jr., but nothing ever came of that. There's a group of us that tried to get Donald Trump to run for governor before he ran for president, and he would have done it. But I think the Republican apparatus, all he said was, Trump said, I just don't want a primary. And what did the apparatus do? They got a primary as soon as they left the meeting room, primary challenger. So I don't know how likely he is to get back involved in that, especially now that he's moved technically to Florida. Comment from a different viewer, more of a way, but Canastillo is with you. Well, thank you very much. I always like Canastillo being a part of the program. All right. How are we doing on time? This is a fair question. Then we have one other thing about Iran in the next hour, and then we're going to move along. But feel free to weigh in on the president's speech. When President Trump criticized NATO for being a paper tiger and withdrawing the United States is beyond reconsideration, the foreign policy establishment erupted. It shouldn't have. Trump was saying aloud what many inside the Pentagon have known for years. The surprise isn't the criticism. The surprise is how long Washington waited to have this conversation. And this is by Robert Magninus. The underlying problem will be resolved on its own. Either Europe's NATO members decide the alliance survival depends on their willingness to act like partners rather than clients, including honest conversations about which members can actually fight, or the United States concludes and maintains the fiction of shared burden costs more than changing the terms altogether. The Iran crisis didn't create that choice. It made it possible to ignore. The question going forward is whether allied capitals treat this as a genuine inflection point or stall until American pressure cools. History says they'll stall. The stakes say they can't afford to. I served in the alliance when the mission was clear and the commitment was mutual. The Cold War ended without a shot fired across the Fulda Gap because deterrence was real and everyone on our side believed we meant it. The credibility has been eroding for 35 years. Trump didn't create this problem. Washington built toward it, one deferred hand question at a time. Those questions about membership, mission, reciprocity, and whether these institutions still serve the nation that built them are now on the table. The only thing worse than asking them too late is walking away before we get the answers right. So the real question is, how does America fix it? Do we want to? It sounds like Trump is making serious moves against NATO. Okay, when we come back, we've got a piece from the New York Post editorial board about Iran. Then we're going to talk about birthright citizenship. We got to get in the New York State because Assemblyman Phil Palmisano sent us a clip from the budget extender discussion. We'll play that, and also a really nice, I don't even know what you'd call it, just a really nice, almost a public service announcement, as we know a big passion of Palmisano's is the bipartisan lawmakers back a bill to expand organ donor registration. We'll show you that in the next hour as well. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
And then the man didn't hire William Mattar and settled for a low-ball offer. Ooh. Ooh.
Bill, that's really not that scary.
Really? It gives me the chills. I mean, at William Mattar, we only handle motor vehicle accident cases, and they should have called us.
Dealing with big insurance doesn't have to be scary. Rideshare truck, motorcycle, car, only call William Mattar.
Oh, dear coach.
Dear coach, they don't teach you that inner strength is the most important kind of strong. But you taught me that.
They don't teach you how to build confidence in yourself or how to deal with all the pressures all at once. But you taught me that.
First tee was more than golf. It's where I discovered what I'm capable of. You didn't just prepare me for 18 holes. You were preparing me for every day of my life. Learn more at firsttee.org.
Everyone has a ritual, that small thing to keep us focused.
A habit we never skip, to clear our minds and elevate our performance.
But what do you do to keep your head in the game? To drown out the self-doubt and support your mental health. Because being your best isn't just about taking care of your body.
It's about taking care of your mental health. Discover the resources that you need to keep your mind focused and your mental health a priority.
And we welcome you to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, getting ready to wrap up our discussion on Iran. But if you are just joining us, maybe you stayed up late for the president's address to the nation, we would love to hear your thoughts on it. We're going to talk a lot about New York State here in just a little bit. Don't forget, tomorrow, Good Friday, our guest will be former congressman, current assemblyman, and current chair of the Steuben County GOP. So we'll be talking with Joe Sempolinski tomorrow on the program. I was just looking at an article, and I don't know if this interests you at all, by Mental Floss, and it was every state's favorite Easter candy. Okay? So every state's favorite Easter candy. According to this study, New York's favorite Easter candy is Swedish Fish. And we're surrounded by Peeps. Pennsylvania, your Peeps. That's interesting to me. I don't know why. But the ranking number 1 was Peeps, number 2 Chocolate Bunny, number 3 Jelly Belly, number 4 Swedish Fish, and number 5 Reese's Eggs. I'm sure that's why you tuned in to breaking news here on Frankly Speaking. Okay, we talked about President Trump's speech to the nation. The New York Post editorial board, I believe, had a very good point on this. It said in under 20 minutes Wednesday night, President Donald Trump laid out the basics of what Operation Epic Fury is about, why it was necessary, how it's going, and what to expect going ahead. Not least, he set out the massive achievements of the first month of operations, noted that he expected 2 or 3 more weeks of it, and offered a clear perspective on the length of the conflict. Even the U.S. role in World War I ran past a year. World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and Iraq all went on far longer. We've left the enemy unable to conduct any offensive operations in Iran and achieved at last some regime change within bare weeks. And that's why I'm so glad, I know I've mentioned a few times on the program, I'm glad that President Trump had that section of the speech which was to put things into perspective. But continuing, the economic disruptions will end soon. A tiny price to pay for a true investment in your child's and your grandchildren's future. We showed a clear resolve to finish the job and gave a definitive account of the need to do it. Americans can't ask for more forthright leadership. Exactly. Addressing the nation. All right. We can talk about birthright citizenship. We probably will here in just a moment, but as promised all morning long, we've got a few things here about New York State, and then we'll get back to it. Again, you can go back to Iran as soon as you would like, comment on anything we've been talking about this morning or at any time. Wallet Hub, who we mention every once in a while, Wallet Hub did a study. With tax day approaching on April 15th, personal finance company Wallet Hub released its 2026 tax burden by state. To identify which state places the heaviest tax burden on residents, Wallet Hub compared all 50 states across 3 major components of state taxation: property taxes, individual income taxes, and sales and excise taxes, measured as a percentage of total personal income. So, in the states with the highest tax burden, where do you think New York ranked? Now, I will say to our friends watching in Pennsylvania, you must have been somewhere in the middle, because they put 20 up, the highest and the lowest. So you're somewhere kind of hovering in that middle area. Let's go with the lowest tax burdens, in case you're thinking about retiring and moving. The lowest tax burdens at 41, Oklahoma. At 42, Idaho. 43, North Dakota. 44, Wyoming. Hey, to our good friends in Wyoming. 45, South Dakota. 46, Delaware. 47, Florida. 48, Tennessee. 49, New Hampshire. And finally, 50, Alaska. And I think that's because of some of they pay right for their oil. Mineral rights, something like that. But, okay, the states with the highest tax burden. We better do a countdown, shall we? At number 10, Rhode Island with the highest tax burden, 9.29%. Number 9, Oregon, 9.46%. So we're going to what is going to be the worst at number 1. Number 8, New Jersey, 9.52%. 7, Maryland, 9.70%. 6, Illinois, 9.92%. 5, Maine at 10.01%. We're getting closer to number 1. Number 4, New Mexico, 10.75%. Number 3, Bernie Sanders, Vermont, 11.10%. And notching in 1 percentage point higher, New York received the number 2 highest tax burden honor at 12.39%, the only one worse than New York, Hawaii. And there's obviously a lot of logistical reasons for that, being the islands and etc. So New York, the second highest tax burden in the nation. I guess the only shocking point is that we didn't make it to number one. And think about that as we talk about the budget, because we're going to go to Phil now. But think about that as we're talking about this outlandish $250 billion budget that has not passed. By the way, legally it was supposed to pass on the 1st, yesterday. So this was a discussion that Phil was having that was about the budget extender. So the budget extender did pass, but you get to hear a little bit more about the numbers and a little bit more statistics from the Assemblyman. So here is Assemblyman Phil Palmisano in regards to the budget.
What is the time period this bill covers for state payments?
This covers 1 week until April 7th, next Tuesday.
And how much does this bill appropriate?
It's $1.04 billion.
May I ask what payments are included in this bill? What payrolls does this cover?
Well, we have non-personal service. Well, institutionals, all of the state institutions are being paid. Do you want a breakdown?
Sure, if you don't mind real quick.
Okay, non-personal services is $10 million. Department of Health is $616.4 million. Department of Labor payments for $135 million, which covers the unemployment insurance benefits, and $10.1 million for Office of People with Developmental Disabilities. We also have the Department of Veteran Services for $36,000 and general state charges for $22.5 million.
Thank you, Mr. Pretlow. So this bill goes till April 7th, so
yes.
You would anticipate that we will be back on April 7th? To
I would anticipate we're definitely back by April 7th.
And if we don't have an actual budget, we'll be voting on another extender on that period of time?
If we don't have an actual budget,
I know how hopeful you are, so.
Negotiated within the next week, we more than likely will have another extender.
If we were to take up another extender, do you have any idea at this point how long that extender might last?
Absolutely. I don't have an idea. That is up to the governor.
Okay. I know this emergency extender also includes funding to support the National Guard deployment in our state correctional facilities.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Do we know currently what the current status is of the number of National Guard in our facilities?
That number has not decreased very much since the last time we had this conversation. But we're working diligently to increase the workforce of our departments of corrections.
Do we know how much we're spending on that, or at least with this, or overall?
$535 million for the year. So I guess you divide that by 7.
Okay. How much does this state budget assume, or this bill assume we will spend on the National Guard for the entire year, the 535, or is it moving forward? That's what we spent to date.
535 is how much we expect for the entire fiscal year.
Yeah, $535 million is what we spent for the entire year.
Okay. And is there a plan in place to try to reduce the number of National Guards?
Well, there's a recruitment efforts going on now to increase the workforce at the docks facilities.
Okay. And I know last year there was funding included in the emergency spending bills to cover increased overtime for correctional officers. Is there any additional funding in this bill to cover that overtime?
That's something that's ongoing. We're not anticipating that right now.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pretlow. I appreciate your time. Madam Speaker, on the bill.
On the bill.
Yes, certainly I will be supporting this extender. It's to keep the state government open, to ensure that our state employees are getting paid and essential services are provided to New Yorkers. Keeping our government open is critical and non-negotiable. But this is not what it should be. It seems like once again we're relying on temporary measures instead of delivering a complete and on-time budget. This is not an isolated situation. It might seem like at the time, but this has become a pattern. Just over the last 4 years, in 2022, the budget was 7 days late. In 2023, it was 32 days late. In 2024, it was 20 days late. And last year, we record breaking under this governor, 38 days late. What will it be this year? It just seems year after year we continue to miss this deadline. At some point, we have to stop treating this as the new normal. We know the deadline, we know the calendar, we know the responsibilities, yet we continue to operate without an urgency and discipline that New Yorkers expect. With one-party control, there should be efficiency. But right now, we're not really seeing that in this process here in New York. The later this process goes on, the less time there is for transparency. Late budgets compress the time members and the public have to review legislation. The uncertainty created has significant consequences for our school districts that are trying to put budgets together that have to go up for a vote in May, for our local governments that have important infrastructure projects for roads and bridges because they're on a shortened construction season. All our communities, all of these institutions are forced to make decisions without any clarity from the state of New York, and that's unfortunate. They do not have the luxury of waiting like we seem to think we have. Passing in this extender is not success. It is the minimum requirement to avoid failure. Keeping government open is a floor, not the goal. We should not confuse keeping government open with governing effectively. If this was a one-year issue, again, that would be one thing. But when it happens year after year, it becomes to be a systematic problem that must be addressed. Last week when we passed the debt service bill, we asked for a financial plan. We asked for out-year budget gaps. We asked for how much it's going to spend. What are we going to be doing in taxes? Hopefully those answers come sooner when we start taking up real budget bills, because that is a necessity. And those are critical questions that need to be answered as we move forward in this budgetary process. So I hope my colleagues keep that in mind as we move forward to get us those details before we take up any more budget bills in the near future. And hopefully, as we talk about hope all the time, hopefully we start taking up those actual budget bills in the very near future. But again, Madam Speaker, my colleagues, I will be voting for this extender. It's the right thing to do, and I encourage all my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you to Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. We appreciate that. We'll be playing another clip from Phil here in just a little bit, just a quick one that you have to see for a push to expand organ donor registration. It's really good. We'll play that probably when we come back, or maybe in a couple minutes. Stay with us. We'll be right back. But frankly speaking, here at WYDC TV, Big Fox.
You deserve primary care that connects. Care that helps you move forward. Care that connects you to world-class specialists. Care that connects you to providers who are part of your community. And care that connects you to the life you love. Because great healthcare comes from providers who care about connection just like you. Find your primary care appointment at centralishealth.org/schedule.
I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We have some lingering rain chances today, but not quite as active overall as what we've recently seen and as what still lies ahead of us. Tonight, mild, low 50s to mid 40s in the coolest spots. We'll be running much warmer Friday, above average by more than 20 degrees. Another warm day Saturday, but the cooling trend begins Sunday, highs in the 40s Monday onward. Also much drier starting Monday.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Sorry about that black screen there for just a second. I'm not sure what happened. I'll do a little diving in on that. Okay, a couple comments from viewers. Surprised California wasn't in there. This is in reference to the tax burden by state. Well, I was surprised too once you said that. I didn't even think of it. Well, that's because California was 11th, and we only read the top 10. But I'm surprised they weren't close to us. I would have thought it would have been a match between New York and California. And then the viewer asked the question, remind me, were all the top ones blue and the bottom ones red states? Yes. The least tax burdens, just peripherally, just a quick glance. I could be wrong about one of them. That maybe one snuck in on either one, but it doesn't look it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Again, the worst tax burden: Hawaii, number 2, New York, Vermont, New Mexico, Maine, Illinois, Maryland, New Jersey, Oregon, and Rhode Island. The bottom 10, meaning the least amount of taxes: Alaska, New Hampshire, Tennessee, Florida, Delaware, North Dakota, Wyoming, South Dakota, Wyoming, North Dakota, Idaho, Oklahoma, Arizona. So there you go. By the way, to our friends in Pennsylvania tuning in, you were just about perfect in the middle, like predicted. Pennsylvania coming in at 24. There you go. Any more questions about that? A comment from Ken. He writes in, many years ago, as a project manager on a large construction project, the architect was questioning some of the methods we were using. After fruitlessly trying to explain why we were doing things the way we were, he stopped me and said, quote, Ken, you're trying to use common sense with me and it won't work. That is exactly where I think the sheep will land when they listen to Republicans. I think you're right. Couple of quick, this is just a short little thing, and I know people understand the passion that Assemblyman Phil Palmisano has for expanding organ donor registration, and they sent me this. I've got to send a note to him when you see this video, but he said, my family knows, and what it is in reference to, not to fast forward here, but bipartisan legislation that would enable New Yorkers to register as an organ and tissue donor while filling income taxes, and a proven tactic for expanding access and registration. Palmisano said, my family knows firsthand the life-saving power of organ donation. My sister Teresa received 2 kidney transplants, one from the generosity of a stranger and one that I was honored to donate myself. That experience showed me how decisions can save lives and bring hope to families in need. That's why it's so important to give more New Yorkers the opportunity to register as donors. The 2026 Doorways to Donations Act will make that choice easier for many New Yorkers. And in doing so, will change the lives of those still waiting for a second chance. And here is that quick, I think it's 30 seconds, maybe a minute, I wanted to play for you.
Thank you all for being here today, this important day. Hard for me not to talk about this issue without talking about my sister Teresa.
The Purple Heart veterans, our son, AJ.
One person who donates at the time of their death can save up to 8 lives and impact the lives of 75 others.
He donated to 6 families. We've met his heart recipient, Stephanie. Truly a nonpartisan issue. It's about life.
Donating life is giving life. That's wonderful.
It's incumbent upon us as leaders to do what is the right thing. My colleague, Assemblymember Tapia's Bill 10299 is very important.
New Yorkers are good. If we just give them the opportunity to say yes, they will say yes.
Donate life is simply the right thing to do. Let's get this done this year. Let's all work together. Let's make it happen here in 2026. Thank you.
And there we go. I thought that was really nice. Speaking of New York State issues, as I mentioned, Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski will be our guest tomorrow. We talk about the high tax burden. Why would people move here? Why would people stay here? People have asked. A lot of polling, and we talked about this on the program numerous times, polling shows that there's, and people anecdotally mention it here on the program, they have a 5 or 10 year plan. That right now maybe they're waiting for their kids to grow up or their grandkids to graduate, something like that, or to retire to a certain point and then leave the state. Unfortunately, it's because of the high tax burden. It's because of the lack of freedom. Look at our utility bills. Well, in New York, we mentioned this the other day, just as an update. Tompkins County, home of Ithaca, is currently holding public discussions over the next 2 months as part of a study commissioned by the county legislature to see how a countywide minimum wage would impact workers. According to the study, the living wage for a single adult in Tompkins County in 2025 was $24.82 per hour, which increased 34.5% since just 2023. Wages have not kept pace with the rising cost of housing and basic needs, and the gap is growing, said Assemblymember Ann Kellis, a Democrat. No, that represents Tompkins County, really? So they paid good money for this, and now the people of Tompkins County are going to be saddled with the businesses with potentially $24.82 minimum wage. Wow. The study, which provides up to $50,000 for research, public discussions, and a final report complete with policy recommendations, is due to be completed by December the 31st. So they're asking, will others follow? Yeah, why don't we just make it as if Albany isn't doing enough to drive away businesses, small and large, and of course not encouraging in any way, shape, or form those businesses to come to our area, to our state. Why not? Albany's doing bad enough. Why not make it even worse at the county level? It is unbelievable. Oh, this is a good point from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Peeps are made in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, so they'll never leave the top Easter candy spot for our neighbors. New Yorkers like to import their favorite Swedish fish from Canada and Turkey, but wouldn't it be great to be known for our Easter candy rather than for being one of the top tax states? Yes. I wish of those two studies, I wish we could have a longer conversation about Easter candy. I did not realize that about Peeps. Boy, we learned a lot today. This program is highly educational. That's great to know. Yeah, Swedish fish. There was a couple on there. I know people are going to be mad. They're going to say, why are you spending so much time on this? But there was a couple that I did not even recognize. I think one of them I didn't recognize. And then people are going to say, you've never heard of them? So I probably shouldn't even mention it. But where was it? Anyway, I shouldn't be doing this live. I understand. There we go. The most popular. I'm not, and this was California, Texas, and Florida. Scanza. I guess I have heard it now that I say it out loud, but I've never had it. I don't know what it is. And Cadbury, as the years we've seen the commercial, I would have thought Cadbury would be huge, but there's only a few. I think I only count 2 as Cadbury eggs as their favorite. Boy, we see a lot of, Maine and Massachusetts. We see a lot of commercials for Cadbury. Anyway, sorry, folks. But it would be nice to talk about this instead of us being the second highest taxed state in the union. As I had mentioned in the 6 o'clock hour, so Bruce Blakeman loses that very partisan, it wasn't a trial, partisan panel, where the 4 Democrats, the 3 Republicans, the 4 Democrats voted not to let Blakeman have matching funding. Now, remember, we were lectured about matching funding being a way for the little person to run for office against a big, bad incumbent. And we'll use a ton of taxpayers' money, and it'll be great, because anything that spent taxpayers' money, right? So, Blakeman, and I'm running late, I realize that. Excuse me. So, Blakeman loses that highly partisan decision. We know it was just apparently Hochul's a lot more nervous about him than we thought. So a lot of people, even on the left, are saying this is wrong. You went against the whole supposed meaning of this commission and this bill. Well, according to Dan Jansen, public funding denial, an ironic blow for Blakeman. Before this week, longtime Albany observers expected that the threat of the Public Campaign Finance Board holding back public funding for gubernatorial candidate Bruce Blakeman would be just a quick, fun way for Democrats to make him jump through bureaucratic hoops to collect. After all, here was a Republican contender trying to cash in on a program his party voted against, decrying it as wasting taxpayer money. It is. But his party can hate it. He can hate it. Sorry, folks. Just like yesterday, I got a frog in my throat. This is time of year. He can hate it. The party can hate it. But he's got to play by the game, the rules that they set for the game. Why wouldn't he take it? He might hate it. But the fact of the matter, this is such a weak argument from Mr. Jansen. Well, his party didn't like it, so he lost it. Okay, so you set up the rules that was supposed to be easier for people. It is a huge waste of taxpayer money. By the way, your tax dollars are going to candidates you do not want to win. But now they say, well, basically he gets what he deserves. This came after his opponent, Kathy Hochul, a super aggressive incumbent fundraiser, chose to skip applying for the program. But on Tuesday, the board With a Democrat majority showed it was serious about rejecting the executive, members voted 4-3 to turn down Blakeman, who stood to collect up to $3.5 million this year from the state treasury. The program allows $6 million in public money for every $1 raised, of the first $250 for an individual. Blakeman's filing violated the rules they found. His application did not include both himself and his running mate for lieutenant governor. Remember, they did not even, they're disingenuous with not mentioning that the paperwork when he filed was not even created yet. Never mind the fact that the application, never mind the application, or never mind the fact that the application form didn't even have spaces for two names. So, okay, now I jumped ahead on Mr. Jansen. I apologize. Never mind that public funding has never been tested in statewide races, or that this is the first time candidates for governor and lieutenant governor were combined into a single unit for funding purposes, which makes the running mate rule extraneous. Yeah, because if you think about it, in the past, it was always, technically, I don't know if it ever happened, but technically you could have a Democrat win governor and a Republican win lieutenant governor. Now they've combined it. Never mind the Hood had not even been selected when Blakeman filed his application for public funds. Any of these twists could have excused the filing flaws, but board members are standing by the rationale that the same rules apply to everyone. And it turns out would-be GOP primary candidate Larry Sharp and a few other long-shot hopefuls were denied public funds reportedly for the same reason as Blakeman. Political party officials keep less than meticulous track of procedural trifles at their own risk. When the GOP town supervisor in Huntington last fall won with the help of an inactive Working Families Party candidate siphoning votes from the Democrat, the burden had been on the Working Families Party to control its ballot line. Blakeman allies say the board fight is headed to court. For the national GOP, the stakes are higher than just another New York governor race. Blakeman was nominated in the hope that his presence on the ticket would help Long Island congressional candidates with the House majority threatened. In 2022, Hochul's less than stellar performance led some Democrat insiders to fault her for congressional losses, Nancy Pelosi specifically, if you recall. The national parties are thus pressuring both candidates to pull out all the stops to win by helping turn out their base. The public funding fight should shake Blakeman, but Democrats cannot rely on it to crush him. Some polls before the ruling suggested Blakeman's support is headed higher, though he still trails Hochul. Some gap closing is inevitable in any statewide race. Blakeman's loyalty to Trump, which may cost him among the mass of New York voters, may also mean he can access funds from out of state that would not be subject to the rules of public campaign finance boards. And super PAC spending will be relatively opaque and unrestricted. Hochul and her allies know by now that an edge in funding isn't everything. The surprise decision by the board could be but a small fleeting break for her, depending on how long the long road will turn. So there we are. Hey, look at all the comments coming in. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Did you know that children growing up with poor air quality have smaller lungs and higher rates of asthma than children that grow up with good air quality? And unfortunately, poor communities have poor air quality. IQ Air Foundation is working to change this. Today, the IQ Air Foundation provides filtration technology to schools with poor air quality through our Clean Air for Kids program. Our goal is to help over 50,000 school children every year breathe over 90% cleaner air indoors, helping to level the playing field, reduce barriers to learning, reduce sick days, and increase test scores. Mitigating poor air quality is key to environmental justice. Help Clean Air for Kids reach more children at IQAirFoundation.org.
Hot tubs, hot tubs, hot tubs.
With Easter coming, what better way to make every day better than with a Hesselson's hot tub? During these uncertain, stressful times, what better way to relieve tension and relax those achy muscles? During Easter week, free chemicals and free steps, and the new and innovative energy-efficient smart top and hydraulic lift systems are just half price. Plus, huge, unprecedented discounts on 2025 models as factory reps will be on hand. Hesselson's Easter week hot tub sale is going on now through Saturday at 5 p.m. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Some comments from viewers. Statehood for upstate. Thank you very much. You could talk about the one-party rule, especially look at that decision with Blakeman. Comment from a different viewer. Truly important to know about our area's businesses, like making Peeps. Who know? Yeah, Peeps, and not that far, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I did not know either. So I appreciate that. Mark writes in, raising wages does nothing to help with taxes, as when they raise wages, we pay for it in everything we buy. For instance, Sally gets $1 more an hour, so we have to up our menu prices. Absolutely. But leave it to Tompkins County, specifically Ithaca, to start looking at this and pay $50,000, it sounds like, to have a study into it. Okay. That kind of does it for New York issues. The Supreme Court yesterday, it looks as if they may uphold the birthright citizenship issue, but the issue isn't going away anytime soon. When Trump left the courtroom midway through the argument in the case challenging his birthright citizenship executive order, he was signaling what all of us following the argument were feeling. The administration was going to lose. Of course, that was the conventional wisdom going in, which is probably why Trump had been so negative on the court, culminating in a press conference where he announced that he'd come to the argument. Trump's presence was a big deal. The first time a sitting president has ever attended a Supreme Court argument, but it didn't affect the argument. It showed how important this case is to the president's agenda, but his policy arguments in response to historic levels of illegal immigration and birth tourism, popular as they are, didn't seem to change any justice's voice, which isn't to say that there were no surprises. The smart bet going into the argument was the court would take an off-ramp that would allow it to avoid deciding whether the 14th Amendment requires birthright citizenship for children of illegal aliens and temporary visitors. I'm not going to go into the legalese of all this. Those who claim that the administration's legal arguments are frivolous or born of xenophobic malice are simply wrong. These are hard questions and live disputes. But regardless, it very much looks like the justices will bite the bullet and rule squarely on the constitutional issue. For example, late in the ACLU's argument for the challengers, Justice Brett Kavanaugh asked about a potential resolution on statutory grounds, that Trump's executive order goes against existing law, implying Congress could change birthright citizenship rules, but there seemed to be little appetite for that kind of compromise. Other key issues expressed significant skepticism of the administration's position. Chief Justice Roberts called Solicitor General John Sauer's example of historic exemptions to birthright citizenship quirky. Justice Neil Gorsuch characterized Sauer's supporting authorities as Roman law while stumping Sauer, who otherwise performed better than the ACLU lawyer representing the challengers, with a question about whether Native Americans who were made citizens by the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924 would still be citizens under his approach. Justice Amy Coney Barrett said reinterpreting existing law and practice would be messy in some applications. With only two justices, Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, showing themselves to be in the administration's camp, there doesn't seem to be a way that the executive order can survive. But we could end up with a splinter decision with plenty of concurrences on the finer point of the ratification debates. Precedent, especially Wong Kim Ark, the 1898 case granting citizenship to the children of non-citizen permanent residents, and statutory interpretations. President Trump won't like that at all, but it could be a winning issue for Republicans in the midterms, energizing not just the base, but those many independents for whom immigration is a decisive issue. Justice, there was a really weird point, and we talked about Justice Jackson on the program yesterday. She is, what we're seeing, trying to push the liberal agenda more than anything. That's where the importance is. It's not about precedent. It's not about the law. It's about her doing what her party can't do in the House, the Senate, and the White House. During oral arguments at the Supreme Court, Justice Jackson made her case for why the children of foreign tourists ought to qualify for birthright American citizenship if they were born in the U.S. while their parents were on vacation. This is what I mean. This is a radical justice. The suggestion is that foreign tourists qualify for birthright citizenship because they have, quote, local allegiance to the U.S. while on vacation. Jackson said, I was thinking about this, and I think there are various sources to say this, that you obviously have permanent allegiance based on being born in whatever country you're from. That's what everyone recognizes. But you also have local allegiance when you are on the soil of this other sovereign, And I was thinking, I, U.S. citizen, am visiting Japan. And what it means is that if I steal someone's wallet in Japan, the Japanese authorities can arrest me and prosecute me. It's an allegiance, meaning, can they control you as a matter of law? I can also rely on them if my wallet is stolen to under Japanese law to go and prosecute the person who has stolen it. So there's this relationship, even though I'm a temporary traveler. I'm just on vacation in Japan. I'm still locally owing allegiance in that sense. So now to tourism. Okay, well, that's one way to bring up tourist money. Aaron Blake said, I got to take a break. Stay with us. We've got more on this when we return. This is Frankly Speaking here at WYDC TV, Big Fox.
With Steel Battery. Save up to $50 on select AK battery tools. Shop in-store or online.
Having a safe home is essential to many aspects of our lives. From a sense of community and safety, to physical and mental health, to economic security and independence. Most homes in our communities are not accessible and are not designed to accommodate the changes that come with age, including the risk of falling. The Older Adults Home Modification Program helps reduce the risk of falls, improves safety, and increases accessibility and independence. Through this program, Rebuilding Together works with older adults to provide no-cost preventative home repairs so our neighbors can safely age in place in the homes and communities they love. To learn more, visit rebuildingtogether.org/safeathome.
I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We have some lingering rain chances today, but not quite as active overall as what we've recently seen and as what still lies ahead of us. Tonight, mild, low 50s to mid 40s in the coolest spots. We'll be running much warmer Friday, above average by more than 20 degrees. Another warm day Saturday, but the cooling trend begins Sunday, highs in the 40s Monday onward. Also much drier starting Monday.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Some comments from viewers. Aren't the turtle candy made in Big Flats? Yeah, Dement's Turtle. I think that's, as far as I know, that, and I looked it up real quick, the Flips brands, they're made in Horseheads on Big Flats, the One Turtle Circle, Horseheads, New York. So yes, good point. We're having some candy conversations this morning. Comment from a different viewer. Why should a baby born in the U.S. determine and essentially forgive that the parents or parent is here illegally? I'm with the president that a baby born here is not a citizen. Thank you very much. Aaron Blake says Trump might regret his historic visit to the Supreme Court. So Presidents have avoided attending oral arguments to negate even the appearance of trying to unduly influence a co-equal branch of government, but Trump is happy to browbeat whomever it takes to get what he wants. And he reserves some of his most pointed recent criticism for the Supreme Court justices he appointed who've occasionally ruled against him. So if we're to believe this argument, and I hope this argument is wrong, him attending is going to make those justices so mad that they may change their otherwise decision, their otherwise right decision, let's say, to a different one just to prove a point. If that's really what we're talking about with the justices, then we're in trouble. That doesn't mean judges aren't susceptible to pressure, but the calculus is different, and Trump does seem to have an answer for the fast accumulating list of cases in which judges, and even many GOP and Trump-appointed ones, have ruled against his brazen power grabs. So he tried something different on Wednesday. He might wish he hadn't. Okay. Fox News Channel's Jonathan Turley, he's a George Washington University law professor. He said these justices really were grappling with over 100 years of precedent. The hilarious aspect of this, and I'm sure you felt the same way, was to hear the liberal justices, who rarely allow the language of the Constitution to stand in the way of a preferred interpretation. But they seem to be channeling Scalia today, talking about how we really have to go back to the original intent, and it's pretty clear this is the English rule. And that obviously played to the conservative justices. He added that for conservatives, they tend to run home to this place. They tend to follow the precedent. They tend to not read too much into the language, and that's benefiting the left here. So yes, all of a sudden, we had those like we saw with Justice Jackson, who just really, the last few times when there's a piece about that, which we won't have time to get to, but just really wanting to be an activist, wanting to make the law that her party couldn't do in the House and the Senate and the White House. So now all of a sudden to see them speak out as if the Constitution word for word is the only thing that matters is pretty fascinating. Simone Sanders on MSN Now, Katie Tur report, she said, you know, Katie, they would have just impeached that president already, impeached and removed. But that is a different Congress. I think that's a different political climate, and that's a different time. The president going to the Supreme Court today is going to be read as just, and talked about, unfortunately, as just another one of his stunts. But to be very clear, this is a president that thinks he's above all reproach. This is a president that thought it was smart politically and a political advantage for him to go to the Supreme Court to stare the justices down in hopes that they would take that into consideration, one could argue, and rule in his favor. But here, if we could just step back, I think that everybody is absolutely clear what the president is doing here, is trying to appeal to a very specific part of his base. But to be very clear, what has happened inside the current Republican Party apparatus is that things that used to be relegated to the fringe, this idea that America is quote unquote uniquely for Americans, which translates to America is for foundational Americans, white people in this country, that is white supremacist ideology. Whew, a lot covered there. But going back to the main point, if a Democrat president showed up at the Supreme Court, they would be impeached. Okay. I can't even read this one, but Representative Susie Lee, she's a Democrat from Nevada. She describes herself as America's #1 most bipartisan member of Congress. She posted and later deleted a profanity-laced response on X to an Associated Press story about President Trump's planned attendance at the Supreme Court. I don't want to go through it because it is every other word is a cuss word. So blanking blank, yeah, I'm not doing it. No, because I don't want to slip. So the America's #1 most bipartisan member of Congress, Susie Lee, Democrat from Nevada, had to delete, I'll pray they blank him, to his face. Unbelievable. That's the kind of hatred that's out there. But we do have to take a short break. Boy, we are moving fast. Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about the shutdown. I know, kind of a big hurdle, but there's more hurdles that remain as the GOP leaders declare a path to end the DHS shutdown. See, CNN words it in that way, and it's smart for their political agenda. That puts the onus on the GOP. It makes it sound like they are the reason that the government, that specifically DHS, has been shut down for as long as it has. That if finally GOP's talking, they're going to get this through. We know what they're doing. It's typical. Well, we've got a couple comments on it, and then we're going to kind of jump around. We only got about 15 minutes, so get your questions, your comments in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Crispy hot hash browns, sweet savory McGriddles, refreshingly cool iced coffee. Oh, don't mind me, just doing my morning affirmations. Crispy hot hash browns, sweet savory McGriddles.
Mix and match a sausage McMuffin with egg McMuffin, or sausage, egg, and cheese McGriddles. Get any two for just $5 and pair it with $1.99 any size iced coffee.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
This is one of the busiest highways in America. Thousands of trucks travel up and down it all hours of the day, and big trucks can cause catastrophic injuries. That's when you need the power of William Mattar, the largest motor vehicle accident firm in the state. At William Mattar, we only handle motor vehicle accident cases, and we fight for big money and big results. Hurt in a car, only call William Mattar.
There have always been a few ready to fight and win. Since 1775, these few have been Marines, and they come from across this land to defend the future of our nation. This year, our Corps celebrates 250 years, and Marines are proud to serve this country, each other, and all that is still to come for America.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Some viewer comments. Rick writes in, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Rick. Trump said he is considering leaving NATO. Rick says Trump should consider leaving office. The clown has no idea how vulnerable that would leave us. Trump has made a lot of enemies for all of us across the globe. If we leave NATO, I would guess some of those enemies might decide to pay Trump back right in our own backyard. Trump doesn't think we need anyone. We're not that bad standing alone. We are a force not to mess with as a member of NATO. That doesn't mean you go on globetrotting, starting trouble at every turn. It must hurt to talk about war when you have bone spurs. I'm not sure what he said. I have a question. If we are oil independent and none of the oil bottled up in the Strait of Hormuz is bought by the U.S., why did our gas prices go up to $1 a gallon? Shouldn't we insist that we will control the price of our own oil? What good is it if to be oil independent when someone else controls the price? The fertilizer part is scary, though. Our farmers need that at a much lower price. As Steven Tyler says, it's the same old story, same old song and dance, my friend. Thank you, Rick. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. It's infuriating to me that we have a Supreme Court lifer who clearly doesn't wear a blindfold, who wouldn't define what a woman was, and her lone dissent on conversion therapy was disgusting, in my opinion. It speaks volumes. I would agree. I would say her dissent on that issue was just, it shows you the definition of activism, right? That even when her own far left colleagues said, whoa, you went too far, and put a footnote in there essentially criticizing her, and she's a lifer and she's relatively young, you're going to have a career of that, where again, she is trying to get through what her party couldn't. So that's why we say activist. And the Democrats had a history of this. If something wasn't popular, they take it to the courts and not go to the voters. Or if they can't get it through the House and the Senate and the White House, they would go to the courts, and it would work for them. Now you've got someone in there that is a step above activist, I would say. She doesn't care about precedent. She doesn't care about anything but her political views. Continuing with a different viewer comment. Even if birthright citizenship continues as written, it will still be far better than a Biden-style open border. Fair point. And Ken writes in, if you were a Supreme Court judge and you knew that the left will literally do anything, dox, threaten, protest, prosecute, push misinformation, etc., to ensure that they get or grow more Democrat voters, would you vote to stop thousands from becoming voting citizens? Yeah, you would think. Speaking of that, remember one thing that no one ever mentions anymore. Remember when they released information about the Roe v. Wade that there was nothing ever came from that. Who released the information before the decision was made in an attempt to try to intimidate? So they talk about Trump trying to intimidate in person that's setting this precedent. Well, what about the leaked classified information that had never been done before, trying to intimidate the judges into making a different decision because the media became outraged, there was protests in the streets. They were hoping that it would change their views. Interesting that isn't mentioned more. We got to take our last break. Yeah, I know. We're running quick this morning. Get your last minute comments in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Kyle just made a decision that would change his whole world.
Hey, you're sober? You drive.
Kyle just made a decision that would change his whole world. Drive sober or get pulled over.
When a child is fighting a critical illness, one truth touches us all. Every child deserves a childhood. A wish sparks a ripple of hope that transforms communities far and wide. And when we grant wishes together, we create a movement of kindness, strength, and unity. Yay! Become a wishmaker today and be part of a journey that truly changes lives.
I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We have some lingering rain chances today, but not quite as active overall as what we've recently seen and as what still lies ahead of us. Tonight, mild, low 50s to mid 40s in the coolest spots. We'll be running much warmer Friday, above average by more than 20 degrees. Another warm day Saturday, but the cooling trend begins Sunday, highs in the 40s Monday onward. Also much drier starting Monday.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, wrapping up today's edition. Comment from a viewer just down the Susquehanna River, about 50 miles. There's a very important place named Mahoopany. Why is it important? They have the Charmin factory. I did not know that. Well, thank you for that. We had a lot of interesting facts today. I do appreciate that. Elon Omar acknowledged at a town hall that Democrats are responsible for the ongoing Department of Homeland Security shutdown at a time the nation's terror threat is higher than usual. As many of you know, Democrats said we are not going to pass the appropriations bill for the Department of Homeland Security unless they agree to 10 reforms. Simple things like unmasking ICE agents when they are patrolling our communities. The Congresswoman asserted that Republicans in the White House refused to accept the proposal, resulting in the partial government shutdown. So far, the Republicans and the president have refused to say yes to any of those reforms, which means the department doesn't have the resources to be able to pay for not just ICE and Customs and Border Protection, but they don't have the resources to pay for TSA agents. They don't have the resources to fund the Coast Guard, to fund our cybersecurity employees. It's time when our terror alarm is higher, at a time when our terror alarm is higher. So admitting that it was the Democrats, but Jeffrey says the DHS shutdown is the GOP's fault. We shouldn't fund all of DHS without the changes that they demand. Okay. That's kind of the back and forth. Well, the media is happy to run with the idea that it's the GOP's fault. Stephen A. Smith, the sports announcer, said on a podcast the other day that he regrets voting for former Vice President Kamala Harris. He initially believed Harris would work across the aisle before concluding Democrats still did not understand why they lost. I also believe that she was the kind of person that could work across the aisle. And then when I saw how things were unfolding and how in the clouds the Democrat Party was, even after they lost the election, I said, there is no hope. I said, I don't know what the heck I was thinking about believing that you all would get it, because you still don't get it. Wow. All right. Does that do it for today's edition? Oh, that piece I was telling you about, you can find it for yourself at Fox News at their opinion. It's by Jonathan Turley, and it's Justice Jackson's dissent which we mentioned earlier, reveals narrow view of the First Amendment. That's a very generous way of putting it. Saying, what is most chilling is that Jackson is now routinely called the model for new nominees, including the push to pack the Supreme Court with an instant liberal majority. If so, Jackson's radical views on constitutional interpretation could be replicated on a newly packed Supreme Court. To paraphrase her decision, to be completely frank, we know exactly what will happen then. All right. On our way out the door. Morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Never in U.S. history has a leak come out of the Supreme Court. Seems obvious to me who that leaker was. The new activist judge installed by the Biden regime to destroy the court. Well, yeah, they want to talk about Trump's unprecedented attendance at the argument. Yeah, well, how about the leak? Which isn't it interesting? You're telling me they could never track down who the leaker was? No, the media didn't want to report on it. They didn't want to report on it. It's as simple as that. By the way, the new I don't know if you want to say conspiracy in the media is that Trump has discussed ousting Attorney General Pam Bondi, and that Bondi is in the fight of her life. How many times have we heard that so far with Bondi? It's been an ongoing kind of push by the media. But that does it for today's edition. Now, frankly speaking, have a great day, and we'll be back tomorrow morning starting at 6, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox.
Hot tubs, hot tubs, hot tubs. With Easter coming, what better way to make every day better than with a Hesselsen's hot tub? During these uncertain, stressful times, what better way to relieve tension and relax those achy muscles? During Easter week, free chemicals and free steps, and the new and innovative energy-efficient smart top and hydraulic lift systems are just half price. Plus, huge, unprecedented discounts on 2025 models as factory reps will be on hand. Hesselsen's Easter week hot tub sale is going on now through Saturday at 5 p.m. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.